Dev, I had a question for you as an entrepreneur, a kind of practical question of the projects you're doing in the library you're building in Norfolk. But before, your talk is so inspiring. I have to say, tomorrow evening, the Brooklyn Public Library is reviving its Night of Philosophy and Ideas from 7 p.m. till midnight. And it's too late for this to happen now, but you totally need to be a speaker at that event. And maybe next year that could happen. Now, back to the question. On a practical basis, for many of us in New York City apartments who share your affection for books, who own too many books, Tina, I love that Japanese word about buy books even though you may not read them. A lot of us have that affliction, I certainly do. And how could we, in a way that is productive to society, decide to de-accession the books so we can live in our apartments and give them to somebody else on a more organized and sensible and productive manner?
Well, let me tell you what happened when I went by and bought my first bunch of books. There was the bookstore closing down. I had this opportunity to go there, and I didn't really know, so I went there every single night for 30 days and just kind of squirreled away books in a corner. I ended up with 1,500 books, and I took all these books. And I was like, come on, I don't know, what are you gonna do with them? I got them all into my apartment. And there was 100 boxes or so of books. And my brother came over, and they were just stacked there. My bed was on one side. And my brother came over, who's in interior design and construction and stuff, and he was like, there's a crack between your window frame and the ceiling. That's not good. And we moved all these, and their floor had sunk by an inch between the baseboard because I had put them all in one corner. And so then we moved them all around. But I knew when I bought those books that books have a gravity to them and that they were gonna pull me in some way, not either the apartment down or me forward, I didn't know which, but they were gonna do something for me. And that is what pushed me to basically get sorted library going. So I am not the right person to ask. Yes.
Obviously, you put a lot of importance in printing books, right? You're printing your part of the internet.
Yeah.
In the age of Kindle and digital books, what is your relationship with non-physical books?
I like physical books. Also, physical books are not dying off. The Kindle and all you're reading went, and then it just kind of plateaued and it stayed there. And so it hasn't really been an issue. Also, it's a personal decision. Whatever way you read, whatever way you can get yourself to think and be in a different place, to witness your own thoughts amongst a different idea, that's good. I don't care. I want you to think more, and I want you to notice more, and I want you to pay attention more. And so I personally love writing in the margins, no matter how much I like using my books. And so I like seeing them on the shelf so that I get to see them and remember what room and choose which direction I go. But that's me. And so I have nothing against the e-reading world or the internet in general.
Thank you for that wonderful talk. I certainly enjoyed it. And I have to preface by saying I'm a children's author, so there's a certain bias inherent in my question. And the assumption when you show a book is that someone is able to read. And in New York City, 65% of the children don't read at grade level.
Yeah.
So my question is, how do you get people to the point where they can read those books? And what are the kinds of mechanisms and ways that, reading determines your income, it determines your life path, it determines so many things. So there's economic, psychological, all kinds of implications to reading.
Yeah.
And I love what you did, but I guess I want to make it more complex in terms of understanding the reality of reading and the impact it has on children, because to read those books, they have to be able to read.
Right, and you know what? At the grounding of what I spoke about, reading as a way of living, is you can actually sub out reading for anything. It could be looking at art as a way of living. It could be walking into a space and understanding yourself. Because actually what I'm talking about is paying attention and honoring and giving value to your own feelings and thoughts. And then putting yourself in situations where you think about and feel different things. And that is actually accessible to us all at all ages. And whether it's children's books that are largely picture-driven, and the person reading that children's book gives people space to imagine and think, or to just flip and look and not turn the page quickly enough, but to live in that page, in those colors, in that moment, to allow a child's imagination to fill in the details, to let their mind go to wherever it goes. That it's a way of living, and it's a way of paying attention. And that's what I advocate for, and that is not to negate all the social issues that need to be addressed in order to make literacy something that is both accessible and enabling for cross-class, cross-race, cross every diaspora that we have. It's like, that is true. And this way of paying attention is also true. And I think it's hard. You know, I don't think there's an easy answer, but I do know that that level and quality of attention is accessible, and is something that we can all bring ourselves to those around us, to moments where we can step in first.
Hey, Dev. Hello.
Hi.
Hi. I'm Taylor. Nice to meet you.
Oh.
Cool. Hi. Loved the talk, and I also think a lot about these rooms, and so I just love the way that you framed that. I don't know if anyone here has read the Midnight Library, but I'm excited for the blog post where I'm tying that together with the Midnight Library and everything that you talked about. And I was curious, in your words, if you've ever left a room mid-reading.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I mean, of course, you know. But, you know, of course, sometimes I get everything I need from it. You know, there's like, that's totally fine. I feel totally resolved with that. I also feel like, you know, there's a momentum to reading in general, if we're talking about just like, sometimes you got to read a short book, get a couple short books under your belt, and then you're like off to the races, tackle something a little bit bigger. You know, I think, and like sometimes you just need to give yourself permission to not continue. And that goes back to asking yourself the question, and this is the part that we don't do often enough, which is just stopping and saying, what do I need right now? What do I need to feel right now? Where do I need to think right now? And then being still enough and quiet enough to hear what's actually true. And hearing what's true that's going past, oh, I need to finish this book because I'm a person that starts and finishes this book, to like, I need something light and comforting, something I've read before. I'm going to read The Adventures of Dr. Dolittle, or whatever.
There's one more question.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Well, thank you for the talk, Dev. My question revolves around the idea you brought up about public or private libraries, and I say you love the way people curate it and what it means to them. And I'd love to hear your take about what the purpose of a private library is versus the purpose of public libraries.
Yeah, I mean, I think private libraries are like really eccentric because they're like individual, you know, like they're like a mirror of an individual's minds, and they aren't, they're often not created with a foresight. They're created in like, as a result of a life lived. And public libraries are created with a lot of planning. They're created with foresight about who's going to access them, what kind of collections they're going to, what they're going to acquire, what they're going to collect. A library takes a much bigger role in society as a public library, a place to access services, a place to cross cultures, cross class, to get information, to level the field. So public libraries have like a tremendous role in our public sphere. Private libraries, they're a different thing. It's more like almost like an accidental art practice that somebody has, that are totally enjoyable, and it feels like a total privilege. It is a total privilege to have, and you know, I love the idea of making those accessible, even in small moments, or championing the idea of even having a small collection. A library doesn't need to be thousands of books. A library can be 1, 2 books that you love, that you go to, that you keep with you, that you carry from place to place, that make you feel grounded and make you feel like you.